It's Friday, September 16th. Let's talk PlayStation. Okay, so if you didn't notice, PS4 Firmware 4.0 is available now. So kind of just like out of those left field things, we knew it was like coming relatively soon, but like they announced the release date. It was like a week away basically, and it's already out. So probably most of you already have PS4 Firmware 4.0 by now, but that is a news story. Moving on, PlayStation VR. Now remember we were talking about the demo disc and how there's going to be 8 demos on it? Well, actually that's only for just Europe, and North America is getting 18 games, so that's kind of disappointing for Europe, but if you're in North America, you'll be getting 18 different games to sample from come October 13th when you get PlayStation VR, which is at least a good thing. Variety is certainly a good thing to have. Now for some not so great news, layoffs have hit Sony San Diego and Sony London Studios. So Sony San Diego, like a mass amount of layoffs hit pretty much all the non-core team. The MLB, the show team, is completely unaffected, but everybody else in Sony San Diego, like for the most part, I believe, has been laid off, which is very unfortunate. Sorry to those people. I hope those hardworking individuals get a new job and land back on their feet soon. And same thing with Sony London. Just one of those things where they're getting close to shipping PlayStation VR worlds, and typically like when a project is getting wrapped up and being finalized for launch and everything, layoffs just happen. A lot of this stuff's contract work, but even if these people have been around for a long time, it's certainly disappointing. But either way, not having work is not a great thing, so good luck to everybody that is now looking for work. Alright, so listen to this one. The Last Guardian has been delayed for maybe the 17,000th time, but thankfully it's still hitting 2016. The new release date is December 6th, so not that far away. They just need a little bit more time, and that's how you know the game's really coming. If they delay it, but like only by a few weeks, like if it's literally like that small of a delay, that the game's actually like hitting the final stages, and they just need a little bit more time to either do whatever it is they need to do. Probably mostly QA. Maybe they want extra time to print discs and stuff. Who knows? But yeah, when it delays that short, the game's actually coming. So thank God. That's actually that's like good news, because now we know the game's going to more than likely hit that date of December 6th. So one thing that happened this past week is Sony had their TGS press conference, and not really a whole lot came out of it. There's only like 2 notable things I guess we could talk about. The one thing being there's new PlayStation Vita colors that are only going to be available in Japan, but Vita still lives. Vita fever here. It's getting new color silver and what was the other one? Red. So red and silver are going to be available now in the PlayStation Vita lineup in Japan. Very good. The system is still doing quite well over there. Of course, can't really say the same for it over here, but either way, we'll take what we can get. And then also, Final Fantasy 15 is getting a special edition PlayStation 4, the actual new Slim model, and it is coming stateside as well, so we know that it's going to be available pretty much everywhere. Going to be the same day as launch of the game. You're getting the Steelbook edition of the game. It's going to be like $450 in America for price. Console looks great, but already we're going to be getting new special editions of the new Slim model, because that's going to be the new baseline PS4, so that's all well and good. And the game's that's great that game is going to probably hit its release date now too, so great that we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone here in 2016. Now here's one news story we didn't really get to cover. It's kind of old at this point, but it happened right after LTPS last week, which is that, and this was a big one, Sony is blocking mods on Fallout 4 and Skyrim. The Skyrim remaster that's going to be due in November, which is incredibly disappointing. And this is something where Bethesda pretty much stepped forward and more or less made a press release and a claim saying, this is like Sony. They're saying, we had them all ready to go, and Sony's pretty much saying that this is not how it's going to happen. This is not how mods are going to work on, PS4. So apparently it's just like, this is something that Sony's blocking. Which, now, when I initially heard this, I was a little bit off-put, because, for one thing, people don't necessarily remember this, but Sony was actually one of the first console manufacturers to have mods on consoles. They had it on Unreal Tournament 3 on PlayStation 3. This is something they've been pretty forward with, and they actually support. So to hear something like this is a little bit... It's, certainly jarring. It's odd to me. Because I would really like to hear why. And the funny thing is, this is, kind of old news now at this point, but we still don't really have any details. Sony hasn't really made any official comments on it. We don't have any firm details from Bethesda or Sony about what necessarily has happened. And there's a number of things going around the web from various sources, So it's all rumor and conjecture at this point. A lot of people are saying that, yeah, it is Sony. and they have a problem with maybe there's possible security exploits with mods being on PS4, or Sony just has really strict quality control or something. There are on the flip side, I've read some sources that are saying this is actually Bethesda's issue, and they're having troubles getting them to work properly or something, and they're not there's like a bunch of different things going around. So we don't really know what is happening, but I would have to assume that it probably maybe is Sony, but that's what's odd about it, is why would it be Sony? And I would have to say it's probably like a quality control thing or something, because obviously Sony doesn't have a problem with mods, and they certainly don't have a problem with user-created content. A lot of their games that they fund themselves in-house had that mentality of play, create, share, like Little Big Planet or any of these other games that they've done, Mod Nation Racers or Dreams coming up. I mean, they're really big into that stuff. They love user creation. So there's got to be a reason for it, and that would be my guess, but really anybody's guess is good at this point until we hear something from Sony and Bethesda. So one thing that was going around this past week, which is kind of like one of those PR nightmare things, kind of takes me back to 2013 when Microsoft was having such a tough time explaining like what Xbox One was doing. But so there was like a bunch of rumorings going around that Sony's going to be charging for like forward compatibility patches on PS4 Pro. So like, for example, you would have to actually pay money to get an old game patched for your PS4 Pro, which is like totally absurd. I believe Masayasu Ito said that in an interview or something, where he was kind of like, he didn't answer it directly, but he kind of did answer it indirectly by saying, oh yeah, that may be the case. And then other Sony representatives have stepped forward. I believe it was Andrew House or somebody, I can't remember who exactly, but they pretty much stepped forward and said that no, that's absolutely not going to be the case. But they still haven't given like a 100% firm answer on this. They're saying like first party, absolutely not. You would never have to pay for something like that. But like there was some interviews where they said like third parties would have that option, and then there was like another one where they were like, no, under no circumstance you can do this. Obviously, under no circumstance they should do this in any way, shape, or form. That is incredibly bad PR. It's like going to put a very terrible taste in consumers' mouths, and that's the one thing. Because PS4 Pro is a thing, and people think that's like anti-consumer. No, PS4 Pro is not anti-consumer whatsoever. It actually makes a whole lot of sense. Something that is anti-consumer is charging for patches. That would be like a really bad. They absolutely should not do that, and I would have to assume Sony's smart enough to not do something like that. So we got to keep in mind here, this is not 2006 Sony from like the PlayStation 3 time. They have wised up a little bit. That's why PlayStation 4 is in the position that it's in. So I don't think Sony's that dumb to make a move like that, and they probably won't in any way, shape, or form pursue that. And for our final news story, in an interview with The Guardian, Andrew House, I want to say Sony Computer Entertainment, but it's Sony Interactive Entertainment now. Andrew House, Sony President and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Man, that's a mouthful. He was speaking about PS4 Pro's main competitor basically. And he more or less said that it's not necessarily Xbox One now, it's PC. That's kind of what we've been saying for a while now, which is that Sony isn't necessarily concerned with Microsoft anymore and what they're doing with Xbox One. They're more concerned with just selling PlayStation 4s, and more preferably, PC is a growing market now, and that was kind of one of the main points of PS4 Pro and even Xbox Scorpio, which is to offer a mid-cycle update, get some recent hardware in there, and of course move forward with developing technologies, which of course would be 4K and HDR. Quench that thing that's called console fatigue, which is that when you're mid-cycle, when you're how many years into a console life cycle, this is typically where people like to start pursuing other avenues, and those other avenues are PC. So that's basically what Andrew House is saying. He's like that PS4 Pro's main competitor would be PC before it would be Xbox One. And that's the same thing with Microsoft, too. Microsoft's not concerned with Sony anymore. I mean, sure, they would love to sell more Xbox Ones than Sony's doing, because that would mean that Microsoft would be selling a shitload of Xbox Ones. But they're not concerned with beating their numbers anymore. These two companies, while they're doing completely similar things, and they both had the same sort of idea going into this generation, which is another thing I believe Microsoft's Albert Pinello said in an interview this past week about Scorpio. He's like, it's interesting that we both had the same idea, and it's like, yeah, it is, because this it seems to make the most sense for both manufacturers moving forward. But they both have this idea of keeping consoles relevant, keeping the power high, and more importantly, also keeping the community in one and not fragmenting that user base, which is very important. And that's something that is great about PC. PC is one platform, and your games are always going to work on PC. Sony gets that, Microsoft gets that, and that's what they want to pursue moving forward, and that's the right idea. Anyway, those are some of the news stories I want to talk about with you guys this week. If you have not noticed, tons of PS4 Slim videos are finally going up now. PS4 Slim just launched not too long ago. So we're doing all the videos on it. Unboxing, how to change the hard drive and properly install the system software. Coming up shortly, because those two videos are up now, so you can watch those right now. Coming up shortly is just a little video about, you know, the size comparison of PS4 Slim to various other consoles. It's going to be a great video. And then noise test. So we'll do some stress testing on PS4 Slim, play some, you know, heavy graphical fidelity games and see how much noise it makes in comparison to, say, the last PS4, because obviously the last PS4 sounds like a jet engine when it's like playing something like Uncharted 4 for like a few hours. So we'll do that. And that'll be all well and good. And then I want to spend a little bit more time with it to actually do a final verdict and a final review video. So you can expect a final review probably like mid next week. I'd say probably like Wednesday or something. We'll have like a final verdict review video of the console. But so that's what's going on. So by all means, check all those out. And that's about it. So that concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Bujnovksy. Thank you all so much for talking with me. And I'll see you guys next Friday.